Hello, my name is Father Gregory Pine, and I am a Dominican friar of the province of St. Joseph. I teach at the Dominican House of Studies, and I work for the Thomistic Institute, and this is Pints with Aquinas. When we use the word love, we use it to describe any number of things or any number of responses. So you can say, for instance, I love tiramisu, or I love vacation, or I love my friend Dominic, or I love the Lord Jesus Christ. And it's clear that you're using the word love there in different ways, but those ways are somehow related. The use is, partly diverse, but partly alike. So as Christians then, what are we doing when we use the word love, and what are we doing when we love, simply? Okay? So I think that in examining these different phenomena in our life, we can shed some light on our human experience and come to a deeper appreciation of what it means to be a Christian in the world, surrounded by good things and good people. So let's take a look at it. Here we go. Okay, so following St. Thomas Aquinas, big surprise, the common doctor of the Universal Church, we can identify four main uses or four main kinds of love. We'll say love is an emotion, love is a choice, love is a relationship, and then love is a gift. Again, love is an emotion, love is a choice, love is a relationship, and love is a gift. So let's start with love as an emotion. For those of you who care, / the nerds among you, St. Thomas uses the word amor, and you can recognize that in several Romance languages. What St. Thomas means by an emotion is just a movement of our bodily life, a movement of our, what he calls sensitive appetite. Okay, so you can think here of our external senses: sight, hearing, taste, touch, and smell. But then St. Thomas adds that we have some interior senses. You've probably heard of the common sense, or the memorative power, or the imaginative power, or the cogitative power. If not, don't worry. But basically, we take in data from our environment. We take in data from our experience of the world, and that causes in us a response, right? It causes in us a desire for, a kind of appetite for those various goods so that we can engage with them, so that we can profit from them, so that we can contribute to them in some way, shape, or form. Okay, so when we talk about the emotions, we're talking about those movements of the sensitive appetite, those movements of our bodily lives whereby we respond to various sense goods. And when St. Thomas talks about this, he says that the most basic response is the response of love. And you're thinking wow, usually when we talk about love, we're talking about something romantic, exotic, but in this case, it just sounds very basic. Exactly. All right? Very basic. St. Thomas will describe love as a kind of complacency in the good. So you recognize something is good, and it pleases you, in effect. Now, what exactly do we mean by that? Well, what he says is, in effect, we recognize that that good thing fits. All right? That good thing is addressed to us. That good thing is perfective of us. If we engage with that good thing, in the appropriate way, of course, if we engage with that good thing, it will build up our lives as human beings. Okay? So when we think about love here, we're just thinking about a recognition of some aspect in our environment, some thing on offer in the world that makes us better human beings. All right? Now, we could qualify all of that, but it'd take too long. Now, what St. Thomas will go on to say when the thing is absent, that is to say, when the thing is not yet ours, it begets desire. When the thing is present, that is to say, when the thing is already ours, it begets delight. And we can think here of pleasure or joy. All right? So that's the first sense of love. Love is an emotion. The way that we love tiramisu. It's something that appeals to us. It's something that perfects us, right? We get the calories from it. We get the delicious taste and smell from it. And then if it's absent, we go towards it in desire. If it's present, we rest in it in delight. Okay? So then let's turn to the second sense of love, which I've called love as a choice. Again, for those of you who care / nerds among you, St. Thomas uses the word dilexio. Now, for St. Thomas, love here is a choice or an affirmation. Okay, so by virtue of the fact that we are rational animals, we're not just determined by various sense goods. We're not just tossed this way and that depending upon what pleasant thing crosses our path. Okay, we actually have some competence. We actually have some agency as human beings. And so we build our lives on the foundation of choice. Okay, so those people who have gone before us have chosen in ways that lay the foundation for our existence, but then we choose as a way by which to build it up or build it out, and then to pave a way for those who come after. All right, so choice is determinative for us. Choice is super important, for lack of a better word. So then when we make a choice in love, it's a choice of affirmation. All right, it's to will the good of whatever it is that's involved. Okay, so we can identify kind of two movements. All right, so there's the movement of benevolence, which is to will the good, and then the movement of beneficence, which is to do the good. Okay, so when we talk about love as a choice, we're talking about an expression of our rational life as human beings, of our high dignity, of the fact that we're made to the image and likeness of God, and that we can build up a human culture. So we can be involved in relationships and we can contribute to those relationships, which we'll talk about in the next point. All right, but that goes by way of choice, whether a grand choice of a magnificent sort or a modest choice whereby we ratify a state of affairs. It can be any number of ways. But in effect, I have the power as a human being to choose, at the very least, my stance towards a thing. So you think about here, like, this is what we mean by forgiveness. Okay, so forgiveness, it's not love as an emotion, rather it's love as a choice. So when somebody has hurt you, you choose to forgive them. That is to say, you choose to set aside the debt, all right, of fault. There might still be a debt of punishment, but you set aside the culpability, as it were, and you reconstitute the relationship in love. You say, I choose to love this person. Now, that might mean you don't continue to act in the way that you acted previously. That might mean that you don't have the same relationship that you had before. Okay, if you suffered some trauma or some violence, it might not make sense, in fact, for you to live that common life as you once did. But nevertheless, you're responsible for loving, for saying, I will that you know, love, and serve God in this life and enjoy Him in the next. And I want to address any obstacle or hindrance to that love. All right, so how you feel about it emotionally or think about it psychologically is downstream, really, of how you choose it spiritually. All right, and that's love as a choice. Okay, so we've got love as an emotion and then love as a choice. Now let's think about love as a relationship because it flows from this piece. Here, again, for those of you who care, / the nerds among you, the Latin word here is amicitia, and you recognize that as friendship. So what is friendship? All right, so it's a relationship. We're talking here about love as a relationship. So love in this sense is mutual. When St. Thomas talks about friendship, he borrows a lot from Aristotle, who says that in order to have a real friendship, you need to will the good of the beloved, but you also need to will union with the beloved. All right, and it has to be a mutual giving and receiving of love. All right, so you got benevolence or beneficence. I will the good. I do the good to the other. The other wills the good and does the good to me. All right, and it's based on some sharing. It's based on some communication in the good. All right, and the quality of the friendship will be determined by the nature of the goods. So we might congregate around merely useful goods, or we might congregate around merely pleasant goods, or we can congregate around virtuous goods, noble goods, beautiful goods, the things that are most true of us, most distinctive of us as human beings. And in those relationships, we're going to find the greatest range or scope for human flourishing. All right, so you see here that love is meant to be both given and received. It's more important that we give love, all right, because that is what falls within our competence. That's what falls within our agency. But remember, beloved, you love because God loved you first, all right? So we are all downstream of the divine love, which chose in its gratuity. God chose in His gratuity to put us where we were not. All right, and to build us up, to affirm us in this nature and this grace, this sharing in divine life, which we enjoy within faith and sacraments. Okay, so when talking then about that love as a relationship, we're talking about a mutual benevolence founded on some common life. So the words that you might hear in like the Latin tradition would be like communicatio or conversatio. All right, so it involves some sharing. And in this love, you give of yourself. Okay, because in order to have union with the beloved, you need to give yourself to the beloved, all right? And in order to have union with the beloved, you need to receive the beloved as he or she gives of him or herself, okay? So we've got love as an emotion, love as a choice, love as a relationship, and then finally, love as a gift. And here we're talking about charity, all right? So for those of you, again, who care, / the nerds among you, that'd be caritas in St. Thomas's language. So when we talk about charity, we're talking about something that's created. All right, so we're not talking about the uncreated God. That's clarified in the medieval tradition. But it's basically the way in which God accommodates his divine life to our human life. So God, in his divine wisdom and the depths of his divine love, says to himself, how can I share myself with my beloved? I don't want to give, like the Christian people some third thing. Like, all right, I got you a bunch of scratchy lotto tickets. Congratulations. No, he wants to give us himself. How does he do that? Well, charity's the answer. All right, so he bestows upon us grace, virtue, gifts of the Holy Spirit, beatitudes, fruits of the Spirit, all these wonderful things. But we really kind of encapsulate the Christian life in this gift of charity. All right, because love is that most kind of distinctively or perfectly Christian gift. All right, so when we talk about grace, we're talking about a participation in the divine life. When we talk about charity, we're talking about that virtue which informs our will, right? The seat of choice, that power that is at the root of all human movements and all human strivings of a conscious and deliberate sort, that is to say, of a free sort. And when we act out of this charity, what we're acting out of is God's own love for himself and for us. Okay, so God, cognizant of the fact that we can't love in a supernatural way but for his divine gift, gives us his very love with which to love himself and our brothers and sisters. All right, so this is just the love of God poured into our hearts whereby we cry, Abba, Father. All right, and it draws us into the divine communicatio, the divine conversatio. That is to say, it gives us a kind of communication in the good of God himself. All right, and in so doing, it draws us into that Trinitarian communion and affords us the leisure and luxury to introduce others into the same. So in its highest realization, love comes from without, it comes from beyond, and it testifies to us of a life which God makes possible for us, which God pours into our very hearts with an abundant generosity. Okay? So in review, we've got love as an emotion, love as a choice, love as a relationship, and love as a gift. And, like we think here of 1 Corinthians 13 and the way that St. Paul writes so beautifully of love. If I have not love, right, I'm a crashing gong, or you have it translated in various ways. I like tinkling cymbal because it's hilarious. Right? I'm just empty noise, loud perhaps, potent perhaps, but lacking lacking harmony, lacking the appropriate resonance, right? Just lacking what we as human beings are ultimately made for by virtue of the divine gift. So we'll talk about love in that final sense as the very substance of Christian perfection, as that greatest of virtues which draws all other virtues in its wake so that they can attain to their term, which is God himself. Because ultimately, we're not just here to be like swell folks or kind enough. We're here to partake of the divine life and to partake of the divine activity even. And it's love which empowers that and affords us a share in God's gift. Okay, so that is what I hope to share. This is Pints with Aquinas. If you haven't yet, please do subscribe to the channel, push the bell, and get sweet email updates when other things come out. Also, I contribute to a podcast called Godsplaining, and we had a sweet series on the 7 virtues, among which is charity. So you might check that out and enjoy in turn. And then I think that's all I want to share. So hope your summer is off to a good start / already well into it. Say true things, Gregory. Here we go. Know of my prayers for you. Please pray for me, and I'll look forward to chatting with you next time on Pints with Aquinas.